people pleaser, right? Like one of those people, "Oh, okay, and then you're going to cry afterwards. We have an awesome show for you. Guest expert Rina Deutsch coming right up. Hi, this is Leah Richeimer with the Ladies TalkShow, and we have an awesome, very interesting, beautiful lady coming on the show today. Her name is Rina Deutsch. She is a motivational speaker. She is from Toronto, and she is one of those inspiring people, you know, like you just meet her and like you just like, so we're going to have a fun time today, and we are talking with Rina Deutsch. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Thank you so much for having me, Leah.
That's great. So we want to start, we get right into the meat here. Sorry, we no preliminary, whatever. We're going right for the heart of it. What is a people pleaser?
A people pleaser. Well, people pleasers tend to be those people who really have a hard time saying no to people. Like you said, somebody asks, "Oh, could you do this for me?" And even if they really can't, they will find a way to do it so that you can be happy. Very often, these are people who also will sort of adjust themselves and try to act the way everybody else around them is, because in that way they can fit in and be liked and everyone can be happy. So they'll avoid conflict at all costs, and they'll even sometimes leave their own feelings at the door and not be able to really be themselves and enter into like the deepest part of a relationship, which takes a little bit of vulnerability. Very often, these are people who are apologizing for everything. "Oh, I'm sorry, I bumped into you," even though actually you kind of bumped into me.
Hello,
right?
been there, done that. Yeah.
"I'm sorry. What are you sorry for?" "I don't know. I'm just sorry." Okay. So we're apologizing for everything all the time. There's a lot of blaming yourself for everything. We take so much responsibility for the emotions of the people around us. Like, of course, the things that we do have an influence on people, but we have to understand that everyone is responsible for their own emotional regulation. It's not my fault if I was careful about what I said and then you got upset. But a people pleaser will overthink it forever. But maybe I should have said it like that, or maybe I should have said it like this.
A little, I can't hear. Yes.
And it can really be a lot to walk around with.
It's too loud. It's too loud. Oh, thanks. Thank you. Sorry. I missed that last. What's the last thing you said? Sorry.
The last thing I said was just talking about taking on too much responsibility for everybody else's emotions, and also very much being dependent on external validation, making sure that if that person is happy with me and they like me, then yeah, I'm a good person, as opposed to trying to find the internal validation, which can give us the confidence to be able to interact in the world in a way that.
Okay, so you're going to give us, I know, because we talked about it, she's going to give us a lot of ways around this, but whatever. But before we go into the what to do, I want to understand it. Like, what causes this? And this is good for those who are parents out there who want to know what to do so your kid doesn't become a people pleaser. What causes it? Like, what's the internal makeup? I don't. You're not a psychiatrist or whatever,
No.
but like,
what's going on TV?
What'd you say?
I don't even play one on TV.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So I mean, what do you think causes people to be people pleasers and to come out that way?
So it can vary for different people. It's different things, but I think that very often we want to feel good about ourselves, and somehow or another we're not necessarily in touch with what about me makes me a good person. I'm looking always for like, what are other people? What's the information coming at me that's validating me? And so the more I can mold myself to be what somebody is going to like and is going to be happy, the better I can feel. So if everybody in my class, when I'm a little kid, if everyone in my class has those shoes, right? Whether or not I can afford them, whether or not I even like them, or they fit on my feet and I'm comfortable,
Yikes.
I want to be like everybody else and have those shoes and be part of it. And that's okay to a certain extent, except for when it's like our entire feeling of self-worth is hung on those sorts of things. So being somebody who's like, "Oh, I like that too. I want to be part of it." Go ahead, knock yourself out. That's great. And we should be able to accept things that we do like and be part of it. But it's also important for us to be able to stand on the side of things where we're like, yeah, but that's actually not me. And it's okay for me to be me and you to be you. I love your shoes on you, but they don't have to be on me.
I hear. What are the kind of what drives somebody to be a people pleaser? I mean, is it just lack of
Rina, 1 second. Can you try to turn down your audio on your phone? Maybe it's your
it's echoing.
laptop.
People are saying
it's echoing, so it might be echoing off your If you can, do something over there, the audio.
Okay, so on my phone, it's entirely off.
Oh, good. Okay, so your laptop maybe.
That laptop, turn the volume all the way down.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I
Okay.
still just need to be able to hear
Okay,
you.
hopefully
So,
that will fix the issue.
Yeah, okay, good. So the question is, like, what causes somebody, I mean, is it a self-esteem issue? Is it that they, I mean, what's wrong with pleasing people? What could possibly be the downside? So, okay, you may trample on yourself, but you're nice to everybody else. Everybody likes you. What's the downside?
the downside
Devil's
of it,
advocate, you hear.
Yeah.
So the downside, there actually are quite a few of them. So tends to be more with adults than with children, but burnout is a big thing because we're so busy constantly giving to other people and doing for other people, whether it's easy for us, whether it's convenient for us, whether we actually can handle it or not, that we end up becoming very burnt out. Think about it like an ambulance. Right? An ambulance is supposed to go around the community, if, God forbid, if there's an emergency and get people and help them. But if the ambulance never stops and refuels, how far is it really going to be able to get? So very often we won't stop and refuel ourselves. We won't stop and fill ourselves up. So we're like completely and totally spent and burnt out, which is obviously not a good thing. We can very often end up neglecting close relationships and obligations that we have in order to be able to fulfill other things for other people. So I'll just give you an example of a person that I know when she got remarried. So her husband and somebody else in her close family had a bit of an issue, and she started pulling back from that person in the family, and her relationship really ended up becoming very damaged with that person in the family, where there might have been a possibility for her to find a way around it to be able to make herself happy and also to make her husband happy, which of course is something that we want to do, and having a happy relationship is super important, but there are ways to do it where we don't lose ourselves or other things that are important to us in it as well. Often being a people pleaser can lead to passive aggression and resentment, because when we're completely negating ourselves at some stage in the game, we're like, well, how come nobody's taking care of me? Like, why is nobody noticing that I'm falling apart? And we can start getting really frustrated, even when we're doing the nice, wonderful things that we want to do for the people that we love so much. We can be really resentful and upset by the fact that we are doing so much and we're so spread thin and nobody's really taking note of it. And that can be very, very difficult.
Hold on, I want to ask everybody, Instagrammers and Facebookers, whatever, can you write in, like, what, if you are a people pleaser, or if you know people pleasers, what caused you to become a people pleaser? I don't quite follow what the trajectory is. I mean, if it's a low self-esteem, and the reason, because you're saying that there's cost to it, but if you don't really understand, I'm not really understanding what the source. You understand what I'm? Yeah.
Is there an underlying peer pressure component that Rina is referring to with that example with the shoes with children? Are people pleasers because there's a peer pressure?
Did you hear the question?
Peer pressure. So sometimes it could be, but again, I think, Leah, that you hit the nail on the head with the idea of self-esteem, because peer pressure is a thing that we all experience, but a person who, and it's not an easy thing to do, but a person who has a really strong sense of self can sometimes stand in the face of peer pressure and be like, great for you guys, amazing, go do what you want to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to be over here when you're done, and I would love to hear all about it, but it's not for me. Right? But it takes an enormous amount of self-esteem, especially in the teenage years. It takes a ton of self-esteem to be able to stand in that position and to be able to say, great for you, not great for me. So a lot of people pleasing can come from that, from the idea of wanting to fit in.
Hold on, time out.
We have a ton of responses on Instagram. Your question just got like a whole bunch of people
good.
sharing.
Let's hear.
Modest Mama Musings said possibly the lack of acknowledgement as a child for her.
Wow, what meaning lack of approval? So she did something and her mom, no one ever sort of noticed.
Yeah, so then she always wanted people to, when you please other people, they give you recognition. So if she wasn't getting recognition from growing up
what
as
she
a child,
should have done or whatever, then she
exactly.
tries to, wow.
Great,
that was really good.
Yeah,
great introspection.
Totally.
Good
Golden
going.
Path Organizing said bad role modeling from mother. So if you have, let's say, mother who's a people pleaser,
Always saying yes,
is
never
always saying
isn't able
yes.
to say, like you said, this person
Correct.
who said, I'm glad you're doing that. Go have a great time. Let me know how it is, but it's not for me. Like that's a power
Yeah.
that would take. I can't imagine a teenager who would be
No.
able to do that. That's a tough.
Yeah,
That's a big. Okay, let's hear what else.
Said growing up being made fun of and wanting to fit in and be liked.
Wow, I can
So
relate to that.
That's a lot, yeah,
I
and
can
that's a
relate.
lot also of that
Yeah,
peer wanting to be accepted by your peers and fit in like everyone else.
Wow.
And Miriam said, being the oldest child and trying to have the household always be in peace.
Oh, so like I'm gonna wow so that for that one, in other words, what she's saying, did we lose them?
No.
Okay. So for that one, she's saying that as the oldest child, trying to keep everybody happy. So please this one, and then this one said, oh no, I don't want grilled cheese sandwiches today and whatever, and just trying to, if I sit there and argue and say, well, that's what I made, then there's going to be a whole conflict. And in order to avoid the conflict, so then she takes out another pan and starts making scrambled eggs or whatever. Am I right? Yeah, that's what she's saying. Is that what you're saying? Just put a thumbs up because I hope I get it right. So okay, so those are really, really powerful. So this is what we're looking at, is what are the causes of being a people pleaser. And did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
So there are also, I think what a few of the women were saying, so also the idea of like being maltreated at a certain stage in the game, that somebody didn't treat me nicely, and like maybe the reason somehow or another we go to this place, or maybe the reason they didn't treat me nicely is because I didn't do enough, or I wasn't nice enough, or I wasn't kind enough. And so in order to be able to rectify that situation, so you're going to see I'm going to be the nicest and the most accommodating, and there will be no reason in the world that somebody should not like me, because I will just be.
It makes you rejection proof because you're just pleasing everybody.
Yeah.
You're rejection proof, but meanwhile, you yourself are suffering because you never get that feeling of being able to get appreciation or approval upon yourself. Let me ask you this, but I'm just going to kind of go a little to the side because there's a point that I wanted to ask, which is that isn't there a lot of Torah sources that actually encouraged to be a people pleaser? I mean, aren't we supposed to like make other people happy, be good to them, whatever? Like it seems like not being a people pleaser means that we're selfish and we're not putting others ahead of ourselves and like that, and maybe that's not the right direction. So do you have thoughts on that?
100%. So there's a source in the Mishnah and the Oral Torah that says that he who is pleasing to others will be pleasing to God. Okay, so that's great. But then what if I'm pleasing to others and I'm so not pleased with myself? Like, is that the way that it's really supposed to work? We have the idea that Hillel tells us that you should be a lover of peace and a pursuer of peace, and you should always be going after that. These things can make it look like the idea is just constantly give and just constantly do, and you yourself don't matter. However, Hillel also comes along and he tells us, and I think that this axiom is so important. He says, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? So there's obviously this idea that you have to have a good sense of self. You need to be able to be yourself because no one else is going to do that for you. And he quickly follows it up by saying, but if I'm only for myself, what am I? Which means that we're striving for some sort of balance here. We're not looking to be, completely selfish. Everything's about me. And that's what it means to be not a people pleaser. A people pleaser.
That's where I was going with it. I was hoping that would be the outcome of this show. Is okay. I can just be about me. I don't have to think about. No, joking.
Right.
That was a joke. Okay.
Want to make sure that's not what I'm saying. The idea is to find this balance. He says both of those things right next to each other so that we could understand that I need to be for myself because there is a certain amount of giving that I cannot do if I am not full. It's just impossible. But of course, I shouldn't only be for myself. There is a big wide world out there. There are people that I love and all sorts of things, and I can give to them. I for sure can, but it's very, very difficult to pour from an empty cup. So if I am not full, right? When you go on an airplane and they show you the wonderful safety video, right? It's always put your own air mask on first because if you have passed out on the floor, you are not going to be very helpful to the person next to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's basically what Hillel's getting at, is not to become a self-centered, self-absorbed, selfish human being, but make sure that you are good right? Make sure that you are good. And when you are good,
What do you mean
go
good?
out.
What do you mean good? What do you mean that you are good?
Balance, probably. That you're healthy, you're personally filled before you want to
Exactly.
give to everyone else. That you're good, filled.
Like you've got the
You're
oxygen
full.
mask on
Yeah,
your
exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Exactly.
I do have a question, because I find that it's so easy to be a people pleaser for other people, but for some reason it's very it was like a people pleaser for other people. Say that fast 10 times. But that it's not. Many of the people pleasers I know were terrible to their husbands. They never pleased their husbands. Their husband was always so they were really people pleasers to their kids. They were people pleasers to everyone else. They were completely chesed, community based, never said no, but it was always at the expense of their husband. I know one or two of them, they're actually divorced right now. And sometimes I'm like, everyone's like, they're the best, amazing people in the whole world. How could they be divorced? And I'm like, well, their husband was never the one who got their people pleasing. They never got the chesed from them. The husband was always a sidebar.
It's like their appearance to the outside world.
Correct.
To them, and the inside is where it should all start.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So why is it, I find like it's just, for the husband, sometimes it's not, those people are not so easily people pleasing.
It's harder. It's harder.
To spouses. Leah.
Right. Well, like I said before, sometimes when we're working so hard to please everyone, those that are the closest to us end up sort of getting like the short end of the stick.
I think
So
this goes back to what the costs of
That is
being
one
a
of the
people
costs
pleaser.
of
That's
being
one
a
of the
people pleaser.
costs. Is that, and like you said, the husband's a sideline. He's and having that image in front of other people. And also the other thing is, a lot of women get their self-esteem or whatever. We got to coin a new word. Like it's not self-esteem. It's outside esteem. Esteem. External
Yeah.
esteem, like
Yeah.
well, what do other people think of me? And then you go to an event and 3 people come up to you and they say, "Oh, you look so great," whatever. So now that's a tick box. Oh, things are good. Somebody else comes up to you and said, "Oh, that thing you did with your kid, I was so impressed," and blah blah blah. Tick, you feel good. Someone else comes up to you and say, "You said you sent me the email, I never got it," and you're like, "Oh, you're right, I forgot to send it to you. I'm sorry." That goes in the box over here of you are an idiot, you're no good, you don't deserve, you're whatever, and we carry this sort of internal, our esteem again is determined by externally, which is exactly not what we're meant to do. We're meant to do an introspection and try and grow and improve and remember to send the email, all of that. But our self-esteem comes from being a Selam Elohim, being a part of God. Knowing that we were created, each one of you who's watching this show, everybody on the earth was put here for a very specific reason and an important, crucial reason. God doesn't make mistakes, and he didn't put you here like, oh, well, that's a mistake. No. You were put here for a specific purpose. It may be to take care of your husband. It may be to take care of your family. It may be to take care of yourself. And, it may be all of those. But you were here for a reason. So to look externally is actually an error of thinking. It's an error of a deep understanding of the spiritual nature of the world. If you understand that as a grounding, then when you get these checks of nice things that happened externally and the bad things, they don't, they affect you. They all, if someone's, even if it's not your fault and they're screaming at you in the car, why did you cut me off? I'm like, hey, you cut me off or whatever. It still gives you that feeling of whatever. And it does affect your self-esteem. But instead of it affecting it like 50%, it should affect maybe 0.05% in terms of who you are and who you know yourself to be. But to get to the point of being a people pleaser to everybody else, but not to your husband, this is a tragedy. It's the greatest tragedy, because the person who could love you and support you and be there for you more than anyone else in the world is your husband. Again, the wife, he may not be ready for that. You might be married for 11 years and you kind of have almost trained him not to be your support system. Like anytime he does something for you, you're like, oh yeah, right. That was only half as good as it should have been. And it's a little too late, whatever. So you might have actually trained him to be less of a support than he actually potentially could be. Or he might be broken and, not broken, but he might have issues and not be as supportive as you would hope. But there, as we always say, there is always something a wife can do to bring out a better part of her husband. So if, for instance, if a husband did a little, and yeah, he was supportive, but it was pathetic, and you said, wow, thank you, that meant so much to me. Maybe not that dramatically. That really meant a lot to me, maybe that would grow him a little bit more and more, and you get the support you needed. So that's there, and it's available to you. God doesn't make mistakes. He gives people, husbands and wives, who can support each other. And then a lot of stuff and miscommunications and arguments and disasters happen and crises happen that tear that asunder. Is that a word?
Yes, it is.
Make that very, very, what'd you say? That's a good word. But, it just rips it to shreds. So, but the issue is that if you are cognizant and you understand, oh my goodness, I'm a people pleaser, I'm pleasing everybody. Right now, do introspection on yourself and look at, am I trying to please? I'm trying to impress my boss. I'm trying to impress the principal. I'm trying to impress my neighbors that look how nicely I keep my house, or whatever it is. And I'm neglecting my husband. I'm not a people pleaser with my husband. That's an issue. We're going to get into ways to solve this, but I want to find out first. Let's go back in. We only got a little bit of a top flavor of what the costs of being a people pleaser are. So if you could expound on that. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious. We've seen some of them. Are there other costs or stories or examples you have of people and what they've been through that show the difficulty?
Rina, before you start, just because I don't want to butcher her name, but Adina Polisak, I think is the name. Hopefully, Adina, I didn't butcher your last name. Said, hi, Mrs. Deutsch.
Okay.
Go back to class.
Okay. Did she do the name right? Thank you for joining us. Okay, yeah.
Another cost that we have of people pleasing is that it can lead to us having a diminished sense of enjoyment of the things that we're doing and the people that we're spending time with. Wow. Because like we spoke about passive aggression and resentment, if I really didn't want or didn't have the time to come to such and such event, but I did because I wanted you to be happy, or I wanted, the community to be happy, I wanted whatever. And in the meantime, I'm there and I'm seething and I'm unhappy and I'm like there, but not present. It's so draining for us. And it's really uncomfortable for other people also when they pick up on the idea that I don't want to be here. I can't be here. I can't. And it manifests in us not being able to be fully present and fully enjoying what we have right in front of us. So it really sort of sucks the joy out of our life, which is very unfortunate.
Ouch. Yeah, I totally hear that. Totally.
So that's definitely one thing. And then, it leads to a really high amount of chronic stress, because we're trying to keep all these different balls in the air and make sure that everybody's happy. I have to go do this and I have to see that and I have to be here and I have to do all these sorts of things. And it is mentally, emotionally, physically, completely and totally draining. And it can take a huge toll on our mood and on our behavior. So I think like what you were saying, if I have spent all day long trying to make everyone in my world happy, and finally I get home and I feel like I can kind of let my shoulders down, as soon as my husband says something, I'm going to be like so aggravated, so annoyed. I'm in such a bad mood already that just the smallest thing will tip me off and I'll lose it. At the end of the day, if I can find a way to sort of pull back and restructure I can say yes to this, I can't say yes to that. We have to remember, every time I say yes to something here, ultimately, whether I recognize it or not, I'm saying no to something else. And every time I say no to something here, I'm allowing myself to say yes to something over there. So it can take a lot of forethought, but the idea of being able to think things through and say, if I'm saying yes to this, and this, am I going to have any energy left by the time my husband gets home to be able to say yes to him? Yes, honey, I'll sit on the couch and have a conversation with you. Or yes, I would love to hear how your presentation at work went. Or yes, let's go out for dinner. If I'm so spent from everything that I've been doing for everybody else all day, right? And it's true with our kids. It's true with work. We have to learn to prioritize our yeses.
The one thing that I'm getting from this that I think should be sort of a relief to anyone who's watching who's a people pleaser, you're not alone. We're not alone. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has little bits of this or a lot of bits of this. And it's just kind of comforting to know that this is a sort of a syndrome or whatever that has pros and cons. And what I really want to get into is some of the strategies to like, okay, you grew up, whatever, they had a bad role model, or they had, they're bullied in school, or they had, whatever caused them to be the people pleaser. What do they do about it now? Look, they've lived for 32 years, 47 years, 83-year-old. We have some 83. We got an email from one. I've been married 50 years. I wished I had this 50 years ago. So, for those, for people pleasers, what are some hardcore things to, again, after a while, certain habits become so ingrained and so part of our identity, it seems almost impossible to not have that knee-jerk reaction to do things the way we've always done them, even if they're causing us pain, even if they're causing us to suffer.
I have a question.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Rina, that
Yeah.
this is a good example.
Yeah.
If I can bring it
Sure,
up. It's
yeah.
a little
Thank
personal,
you.
but
Okay, fine.
I find where also it becomes difficult and challenging, and that's why a lot of people now are doing online dating, is that shadchans are can be intimidating and come across that you can't say no to them, and we feel the pressure from them saying, come on, just go out one more time, or and they really condition you to not say no, and that also can create
It
a
negates
challenge.
you. Yeah.
And negates you. But I find that I just recently got a phone call, and she kept pressuring me and pushing me that you feel like you have to say yes, just so that she'll set you up again in the future.
Right, because if you say no,
If
she'll
you
be
say
like,
no, you're lost to her. So I
100%.
almost felt the pressure to say, okay, fine, I'll just go on this one date, just so that she'll set me up again in the future.
But knowing
Even
full
though I know
well
that person is not for me, it's not the right match. But you almost feel like, okay, one night, I'll just go for coffee. I'll have dinner. That's fine. Let me just get this out of the way so that when
Okay,
I want her to set me up again, she'll say yes.
brilliant question.
Right.
Marina, you're on.
Okay, so some strategies. So I think the first thing is we really have to start small. Any big change we're gonna make is gonna start from something small.
You heard her question about the dating?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I apologize.
Oh,
okay.
I just want to make sure you heard it.
Right, that the shadchanim are like pushing and they're telling you to say yes and you can't say no, and what do you do about that? And
Right.
the truth is, actually, I apologize. I was going to say this.
Right.
The wrong
Okay.
direction.
That's fine.
That I actually know somebody from it's a number of years ago already. A girl who she ended up getting married to a guy where they were just like, oh, but come on, and it's good, and it's not, but he's so nice, and you're so this, and da da da. And she didn't feel empowered to be able to say no, and she literally actually ended up marrying the guy and was very unhappy. So I think that it's very difficult, but there might be a way to be able to approach the shadchan and say that I appreciate so much your help and you are doing such wonderful things for me. I really truly feel that this is not the right person for me. I have so many reasons, but I'm so grateful to you for everything that you've done. And I would really appreciate if you could continue to do that for me. If you could, keep helping me, but I have to stand firm in this decision because this is my life, and your help and your guidance means everything to me, but I need to trust my instinct here.
That's awesome. But yeah, it's great advice. But also the other thing, I actually know somebody who, excuse me, her kids all, like, she had many, many kids, and as each one got ready to get married or whatever, all her kids went boom, 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 like, and you want to rub elbows with her because they all married great and they're all whatever. And so I asked her, what is your remarkable secret? And she said, anybody who suggests a match for my kid, or even makes one phone call for anyone who does anything for me, gets a $50 Amazon gift certificate. I said, what do you mean? I said, everybody? She said, everybody. Wow. Like, meaning, someone's thought of somebody who was like totally ridiculously stupid match or whatever, and she said no, and they would get a few days later an Amazon gift certificate. And so she said, I said, what? And she said when my next kid came up on the batch or whatever, everyone's looking and thinking, look, is it buying look, $50 is a nice thing, but that's not like a payment for a shotgun. It's the thousands.
Help her. Does she need
Does she need? I'll give you her phone.
I have a couple of guys I can send her.
There you go. but the point I'm making is that it's just that gesture that you were saying to give to the lady, like, your help means the world to me, or whatever. Then you click off the phone and you send her some chocolates, or you send her Amazon gifts, or whatever, to just like keep and we have a source for this. We know that Jacob sent before him. He sent the gifts, there's something about, I remember, my mother-in-law was such a beautiful lady. I can't talk about mother-in-laws because I have such a good one. I have no background. Anyway, she's so special. But anyway, wherever she went, she had, she had extra gifts that she carried around with her where she went. She would check into the hotel and she'd put a few things on the desk for, little coins and keychains and light little flashlights. Everywhere she went, she was handing people gifts. Amazing woman. But people just remembered her. She would come back a year later and say, hi, I'd like, whatever, please give me the, a room. And say, no, you're getting the presidential suite, whatever, everybody remembered her.
a little bit goes a long way.
It really does. It's just that extra, stand out from the crowd. And so, okay, fantastic.
I think another point to bring us all together is that being a people pleaser can manifest in so many different ways. In your relationship with your husband, to the outside world, to shadchanim. So it really can be relatable to so many different situations.
Right. And here's the one thing that you want to know. If you are a people pleaser, it means you are much better able to please your husband. Okay, you have a lot of tactics. Now, you can't be a people pleaser to your husband, because then you're yes, then the resentment builds, then you're angry, then you feel like he's not doing enough for you. It causes a whole warped balance. We're going to learn about that right now. Rina, let's hear some tactics of how to get beyond. How you've built up your habits. The thing you started a minute ago okay, good.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, we're going to sort of start again, like I said, with small changes and in safe places, so that there are friends that we have, or maybe colleagues or people where we can say to them, listen, I'm going to level with you. I'm trying to work on my prioritization, and I'm trying to really get a hold of things. There might be a time coming in the future where you're going to ask me something. If I really feel like I can't, I might say no to you. And I want you to know it's because of this, because I'm working on making sure that I can mean it with my whole heart when I say yes to you the next time. So you sort of give them a bit of a warning. And again, we're talking safe people. Like, don't walk up to your boss and be like, hi, boss, next time you hand me something, I'm going to say no, because I really just don't feel like I can deal with it, right? We're talking like, I have a really good friend.
We're using that tactic.
Right, okay, fine. Yeah, after the show, I'm going to have no staff. Thank you very much. I'll be like, no,
don't do that. No. I have a very good friend in Toronto, and she runs some really fantastic programming, and she had asked me if I could speak for one of the programs. And my initial knee-jerk reaction was, of course. And then I made sure that I didn't go my of course route. I said to her, I'm like, can I think about it a little bit, please? Which I think is a good thing. To give yourself a bit of a buffer before responding right away, so that you can really stop and think and be deliberate. So I stopped and I thought, and I looked at the date, and I was like, I have a couple of other nights that week that I'm not going to be home. I'm going to be missing bedtime. And while this would be great and it looks amazing in the community, and yay for Rina, she's so amazing, but my sweet little 8-year-old is like, where's my mommy? So I was able to say to her, she's a safe person. She's a good friend. I know she's very supportive of me in general, and I love her so much. I said to her, thank you so much for the opportunity to think about it. This time, I'm really sorry I have to pass. And learning to do that with safe people will give us the internal fortitude. It will show us that, I could say that to my friend, and she was like, okay. And we moved on, and we're still friends, and she still loves me, and it didn't destroy everything. So it could help me to understand that my saying yes is not the only reason that people like me. My saying yes is not the only thing that it, endears me to people, and is not the only thing that I'm valuable for, because I'll just do anything that everyone says. Right. And slowly with safe people again. And I think finding the verbiage that works for you. Can I think about it? And then you can be deliberate about what you're doing.
Yeah,
Can
right.
I think
That
about
can
it?
I think
Such
about
a
it?
good,
Yeah, it's
like,
really
it gives
good.
you. By the way, I do have to give a shout out to Real Health Fit, who Rina and Leah posted our show in her story.
Oh, you're
And
awesome.
it's Hanya Lazar, who actually also did a little quiz asking people, are you a people pleaser? And she had it at 67-33, and now it's 50-50. So it was 67 said no, they're not. 33 said yes, and now it's 50-50. So the numbers
The
are.
numbers are
But
fine.
yeah,
It's like,
but she
maybe I am.
promoted it. And
Thank you
that's
very
real,
much
yeah.
for doing that. Awesome. That's
Huge.
great. And we
And
need to click
amazing.
back on her, whatever we need to do
Yeah,
to help her.
exactly,
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
No, that's awesome. So the other thing about this people-pleasing thing, about trying it on safe people, what about your husband?
What about your husband? So, I think I'm a big believer that communication in marriage is super, super important, that we need to be able to find ways to really be able to be honest with people. And the truth is that the more honest we can be, and even when we can, get into a space where being even a little bit vulnerable, we're going to find a way even to make the relationship that much deeper. And not only that, we are presenting our husbands with a beautiful opportunity to give to us, to help us, which as a people pleaser is very difficult, but to go to your husband and say, I love you, and this relationship is the most important thing in the world. I am working on figuring out my yeses and my nos. And the most important thing is I want to be able to say yes to you as often as possible. There are some times that the things that you might need from me there are some times, but I want every single yes to be with my full heart, with everything that I have. There may be some times, and I'm going to keep it to the barest minimum possible, that I might need to have a no. And I need to know that, can you stand behind me? Can you give that to me? Can you love me through that? And can we work on this together? Can you help me? And the truth is, I would say that the majority of time, most husbands see that their wife being a people pleaser is not a positive thing for them, because they have a wife who is constantly all over the place and stressed out.
And I think it's fine to say, look, I realized something. I saw the Ladies Talk Show with Rina Deutsch. It was so good. And I realized, oh my goodness, I'm a people pleaser. I can't, and I run myself ragged, and I'm totally stressed out and exhausted. Why? Because I'm a people pleaser, and I'm really training myself to wean myself off of that knee-jerk reaction of being a people pleaser, which is not to our family's benefit, not to your benefit, not to mine, and not to our families. So I'm going to actually, what in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to say no a lot to outside people. Way more, like if let's say I've got 100 yeses a week, I'm going to only have 50 yeses a week. Or I'll think about it. Thank you. And
right.
with you, I'm going to, let's say I say yes 100 times. I'm going to try and still say yes 80 times. But understand, the things I say no, it's because I'm balancing myself. There's going to be a work in progress, and it's going to take me time
100%.
to figure out how to do this. But I'll get there. And the reason I'm doing it is because I want to be more present for you. I want to be more available for you. I want to be closer to you. I want to be able to take care of myself better so I can take care of you better. He's not going to say no to that.
My sister actually,
100%.
my younger sister who does
Yeah.
gives over your class.
Yeah.
So she actually is a very much, we always say we're exactly the same, me and her. We're like carbon copy looks wise, and we're like 20 years apart, but it's like my mother recreated.
Wow.
But except she's the nice one, and I'm the, well, I won't say the other word, but I'm more of the I'll say no, do my thing, and she's always a yes person. And her husband many times has been really upset because he feels like people take advantage of that, because they know when they want a yes from someone, they just have to turn to her and she'll take everything on and everything will fall on her and da-da. And so with doing your class and with working on reading the marriage book, no, really, and realizing that she has to put her husband first, and she started to use him, and she asked him and he's like, yes. She started to use him as her no, meaning saying, you know what, I have to discuss it with my husband, and then, my husband said this isn't for me right now. And because she could not say no on her own. So she needed a fallback plan. And sometimes, by the way, that's also for kids. The people pleaser kids need to have the ability to say, I know, I want to do this, but my mother, she won't let me. And What
Wait,
a
say
great
this again. Wait, you mean a kid
a
saying
kid
no?
who's a people pleaser sometimes
Right.
can't say no, but if they can fall back
My
on
mother
a
won't.
parent,
Yeah, that's good.
Peer pressure.
yeah,
We
that's real
can
peer
also-
pressure. But
we-
they could say
like
that.
Your talk 2 weeks ago said you can sometimes use your kids as an excuse. Say,
Right. We
Yeah.
have a source for that.
I made a deal with my
Correct.
kids and I will not be taking any extra work this week. I do one night a gig or something like that,
Correct.
right? I learned that from you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
But
fantastic.
an alternative to I think about it is I will discuss it with my husband.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Which
I'll
is
get
right.
back to you.
Exactly.
Hold
And
on a
then
second.
it's-
We got
yeah,
a broken.
wait, she has to
but-
throw a
wait,
bottle.
hold
Now,
on a
Rina,
second.
you could see the bottle because
Okay.
usually our guests can't see that she's holding
Oh, yeah,
something. And
okay.
then they're like, what is she doing?
Okay, I've got to do. So we finished the bottle, but hold on a second. Is this the right button? I can't.
Yes. Yeah. Don't do the burp. Good
There we
job.
go. Okay, fine.
You
Okay,
nailed
fine.
it.
We nailed it. Good. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, you
Okay.
know. By
Sorry,
the way,
so-
Real Health Fit said my husband is a people pleaser. I'm not. So I should get him to watch. Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, to watch. It's techniques he can use.
And her husband's going to say, let me ask my wife. My wife said no. Good luck with that one. Let us
To
know.
get your husband to watch, I will send you a $50.
Yeah, oh yeah, Real Health Fit. You hear that? You're getting a
There's
$50
a-
Amazon gift certificate from Aviva if you can get your husband to watch any
Hold
marriage
on.
show.
No, wait. No, get her husband. I don't want to make her out $50. I feel bad. She was saying something in jest. Okay, fine. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go boom, boom, boom. What are some tactics we can use?
Okay, so now that we've started small, we've done save people, we found our words of like, can I have some time to think about it? We need to realize that it's going to be very easy to just fall back into those patterns because it's not particularly comfortable. So we need to work on building ourselves up for ourselves, which means we need to start not only finding the right times and places to give to other people, we need to start giving to ourselves as well. It's very
Sounds
important.
good.
I'm
in.
I find so often that we frame for ourselves that when I'm giving to my husband and I'm giving to my kids and I'm giving to my community, I'm doing a great thing because I'm giving. As soon as the giving sort of turns around and I'm giving to myself, it's not giving anymore. Now it's taking. Because now I'm taking away from what I should be giving to somebody else. We have to learn to understand that we are worthy of being given to by ourselves as well in order to be able to be full and secure in ourselves to be able then to give to other people, right? So the idea of going back to Hillel, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? It's important for us to acknowledge our own needs, to be able to express them again in healthy ways and understand that they matter too. And you, Leah, were talking about, and I think you, again, really hit the nail on the head of the idea of understanding that we're all created b'tselem Elokim in God's image. And there's a rabbi from this century, Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner, who says that unfortunately our generation now is struggling with so many different things because we're not as in touch with that part of ourselves. And it manifests in all sorts of different difficulties because we need to find a way to get in touch with that and find inner value. I have found for myself, and I know that this has worked for other people that I've spoken to, the idea of waking up in the morning and saying it's a short little prayer called Modeh Ani. You wake up in the morning and you thank God so much for being given your soul back. And the last two words are the pivotal part because the last two words are Rabbah Emunatecha. We usually translate it as that, great is your faith. And it's true, great is your faith in me. Every day that I wake up is God saying, girl, you got this.
Yeah, girl,
And
you got
you
this.
are important, you are special, you are needed, and you've got something that nobody else can give. You are so special.
So I want to do
Rina,
it.
you watched the show with Rabbi Wallerstein because that was exactly what he
Yes.
said. You are
Yeah.
made in God's will. You got this.
You got this. Look in the mirror. So hold on. I just want to do a timeout because for people who are dealing with self-esteem issues, very simple, quick fix. This may not be a very deep, get you on the road to getting your self-esteem switched around. Get yourself a journal. Get a piece of paper, do it in your phone, type it in your computer, open a Word document, type it in, and here's what you're making. At the top, you're saying, what makes me valuable? And then just start listing out. You will shock yourself on there. Nothing like, but I'm really good at listening when I want to, right? No. That's the bad part. Only I'm really good at listening. you're just going on page after page after page. Just list them out, 10, 20, 30, 50 things. And when you're feeling like you're looking outside for external validation, does that person like me? Did the event go well? Did enough people approve of what I was wearing and say my new dress looked nice? When you're looking for outside approval, go back to this notebook. And it's not just that the piece of paper and that now it's made it real by being on a piece of paper. It's that you have been able to look into yourself, introspect in yourself, and actually pluck out things there that are valuable in yourself. If you have a hard time doing this, and there are women who will have, I don't,
don't have the time.
Well, no,
you better have the time.
No, you've got to make the time.
By the way, Aviva's comment, she wasn't here when Devorah Cecil was on. But she and the other speakers that we had, but they literally said everyone has the same amount of time. It's what you prioritize your time for.
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's
it's
right.
not. There's no such thing as
there's
no time.
So, but I'm saying you if you have a hard time filling that out because you can't, you're looking inside yourself, and there's either you've been, your parent has never complimented you, it's only criticized. That's all you ever heard, and it's echoing in your ear of being criticized. If you have trouble finding things to write in there, either go with a sister or a best friend or a brother or a mother or aunt or somebody who really loves you and do it with them. If that isn't working, get yourself a therapist, because if you can't find things like that about yourself that are good, we're very good at picking out what's wrong with us. Okay, we beat ourselves up silly, but you got to know what your strengths are and what makes you valuable. And it is because you're made in the image of God. Okay, that's fine, and that's a good start. But there's things specific to you. Maybe you feel like you're horrible in academics. You always failed out of school and this and that. But write down, But one thing I did have, I was really good when there was someone sitting in the corner and everybody else was having a great time at the party. I walked over to them and I made them feel comfortable. Like, that's something I can do. I can go up to a stranger and make them feel comfortable, or somebody who's left out. Find little details about yourself. I make a mean cup of coffee, whatever it is. Not me. Terrible. Don't drink my coffee if you know it's good for you. We don't drink. I'm lucky. My husband doesn't drink coffee either. We're so lucky because we don't. And people come to my house and they're like,
yeah, no, but I can vouch for that, because when I wanted a coffee and Zach, your son, was like, what? Coffee? How do you make coffee? I'm like, what?
Nobody, we don't do coffee in our house. Anyway, okay, fine. So let's go back with some more things. So I'm just telling people who, if they don't have that self-esteem, how to get there. Okay, good.
There's some positives to being a people pleaser. I think you just said one. Like, sometimes we need to not be so hard on ourselves also, and pat ourselves on the back a little bit for being a people pleaser, because you are doing some good as well.
Good question. Rina?
Would you be able to repeat that? Because I couldn't quite hear it.
She just said, what are the...
She's not being a people pleaser. She's not repeating.
There you go. She wants to think about it. She wants to think about it. I was going to ask her husband. So the question is, if you have a... maybe sit close to the mic. I don't know. Well, just say it's all right. The question is, if she has a... what was the question?
Is it
Oh, yeah, is it bad? Are there any positive sides? Or is there any positive sides to being? Can we pat on the patting? Yeah, can we pat ourselves on the back for being a people pleaser when we do nice things?
I think we can pat ourselves on, because people pleasers, obviously, there's got to be a certain level of empathy that we feel. Maybe it goes beyond the regular, because we can really we get into it where we're with the people. If something's bothering somebody else and I can't make it better, it bothers me that I can't make it better. Partially because I'm a people pleaser, but one of the reasons for that is because I'm exceptionally empathetic, and that is a really beautiful thing. Now, again, I think that the whole idea is about trying to find the balance. Being a people pleaser in and of itself is not an awful thing. Wanting to make other people happy is great. Being a giver from a healthy place is fabulous. It's about finding the balance.
Yeah, that's great.
Right, which I think is sort of the the key to life, is finding the balance. There's empathy. There is, most of the time, if you're a people pleaser, people enjoy being around you. Very often you can make good conversation, because that's part of hanging out with people and making them happy all the time, is you learn how to make good conversations with strangers. You make people feel good, which is really special.
Okay, we're running out of time, so I just want to get back to some hardcore tactics that people can do to become, to get over, what's the objective? To balance it and to not be at the effect of being a people pleaser that you don't please yourself and you don't please your husband. So what are some other hardcore tactics we can use?
Okay, so I think a lot of this also has to do with sort of our understanding of the concept of giving, right? And re-understand the idea of giving, that it always has to be outward, and that anything coming in is bad. That's problematic, because then again, like, we will never fill up our tank and we will run out. And we have to remember also, this is, I think, very important, in order to be able to give, right? And that's what ultimately we want to do in the healthiest way possible. We need to have what to give. So we know the idea that you're supposed to love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? The prerequisite then for loving your neighbor is loving yourself. Because if you're supposed to love your neighbor as you love yourself, if you don't love yourself, how exactly are you loving your neighbor? And if we look at the word in Hebrew for love, it's ahava. It has the root word of hav, which means to give. So we could sort of almost like retranslate into, you should give to your neighbor as you give to yourself. So what's the prerequisite there? You got to give to yourself.
That's great. That's great. So what would giving to oneself look like?
So I think that that's going to look a little bit different for everybody, because depending on the things that you need to feel loved and nurtured and full. So some people, they're going to say, I need to carve 1 hour out every day to go to, an exercise class, because it makes me feel good about myself. I feel like I'm doing something positive and all that kind of stuff. A lot of women I know, myself very much included, like it's one of the things that falls to the lowest part of the priority list is my exercise, right? Because, well, if I take an hour for myself to exercise, I'm not giving an hour that I could be doing this, that, or the other, except for the fact that maybe taking that hour is going to, like, I'm going to feel so much better about myself that when I do get home, I will be that much better for my kids and that much better for my husband and that much better for everything, because I have given to myself. Some people might need, a once a week coffee date with their best friend, and that's what's going to fill them up and recharge them. So we got to learn to stop looking at giving in this direction equals taking. Sometimes giving in this direction equals giving, which can then go outward.
I want, if everybody can type in, what kinds of things can you do to give to yourself? Because I need more example, and we want you guys to show. What
Getting your nails done sometimes.
Go getting your nails done.
Yeah.
It's good. What else? What are other ways of giving to yourself?
Send us giving to yourself.
Giving to yourself.
By the way, Rena, I think one of your family members is on, because they asked, "Are you and Dad in Bubby's house?"
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm like, I know they're not asking Leah that. We're definitely not in Bubby's house.
There you go. That's adorable.
Indeed, I am.
Come up with stuff, guys, that we can do to take care of yourself.
Not being expected to make a meal, just bringing in, everybody should know, Thursday night or one day a week.
Pizza night, right?
Pizza night. That's
Thursdays.
great.
Oh, your family member said I got a pedicure today.
There you go.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Because she has no moss growing under her feet. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Who else? What?
I like to sometimes just make sure I go buy flowers for myself, and I like to sit and arrange them and put them all around the house, and it makes me feel good. I walk into all the rooms, but I make sure I do that.
That's so nice. You mean you buy one bunch, but
I buy
you
like
put
maybe
little...
2 things of roses. I go to Trader Joe's, and
Yeah.
then I get creative at home, and I spend like a good 20 minutes cutting them, arranging them, and put them in each room.
That
Beautiful.
sounds so
It's something I like to do. It brings me enjoyment. Instead of waiting, I don't have someone to give me flowers. No, I treat myself. I get myself flowers. I don't go into Shabbos feeling as if I didn't have anyone by me. I just see my kids. I see my flowers. It just feels good and bright. And that's something I do for myself.
I love that.
By the way, Leah, shout out to Rachel Drummond, who's on.
Oh,
That's our
awesome.
improv lady.
That's
Ladies,
good.
watch the show.
Yeah.
Anger Management.
Rachel, she's a really...
Rachel, we want an answer for you. What do you do to give yourself
giving to yourself? Like, we have pedicure, we have what else?
making flowers.
Making flowers. I love that, though. I'm actually going to go right now and buy some. Getting some
I
fresh
do that
air.
for myself all the time too.
So is this self-care? Self-care is the antidote to being a people pleaser? I'm not following.
In a lot of ways it is, because again,
Hello.
a lot of times the people pleasing, the idea of giving, it comes often from an unhealthy place, because what we're trying to do ultimately, or very many of us anyways, we're trying to fill ourselves up right? There's this empty place that I'm trying to fill up by giving to you, by getting your validation, by putting myself out there to make you happy. I'm
Well,
trying
it's
to
looking
fill
for
me up.
external. It's looking for external approval.
Right.
So
And
how would doing self-care get you internal approval? I mean, I'm just trying to work out the mechanics of how this.
So the idea is that we change the idea that giving can only be external, and understand that I can be pleasing myself also. It's not a bad thing.
I got
right?
it. You're giving
Again,
everybody permission,
Yeah,
guys.
and when you're used
You have
to
permission to take care of yourself.
That
This
was
is
your
good.
whole show that you
Yeah, I did.
That
Self-care.
people don't give themselves
Yeah.
permission to take time for themselves.
Right.
If you give yourself permission, you'll build that muscle of not trying to just please
So
everyone
you're
else.
saying that if you're giving yourself permission to give to yourself, right? Then it's the whole people pleasing and also the other tools that you gave in sort of setting boundaries of no, thank you, and let me think about it. And those kind of boundaries will give you the ability to still be a people pleaser, have all the good qualities of being a people pleaser, but meanwhile you're not having those negatives run your life and take over.
exactly that. And
It's fantastic. How can people get in touch with you if they want to follow up and keep and follow you and like that?
sure. So you can find me on Instagram at Rina Deutsch. I think
You
it's
better
there on the
spell that.
live.
Hold on a
Yeah.
second. You better
Spell it out.
spell that. R.
Okay, RinaDeutsch. You can find me under the same name on Facebook. My email, if you're interested, you can email me at Rina Deutsch, same spelling, at gmail.com. And I would love to hear from people. I post all the time I have a weekly post that I do trying to take real practical and relevant lessons from the weekly Torah portion, all in this idea of positivity and trying to build the most positive and best life that we possibly can. And then also all sorts of different ideas that I get from things all over the place, and things that I'm working on for myself. I think that it's really important for us to build a community, to know we're not alone, and to work together to create the greatest lives that we possibly can.
That was fantastic, Rita. We loved having you on. You're terrific. We'll look forward to seeing you.
Thank you
another
so
time.
much.
This is Leah Richeimer for the Ladies TalkShow. We'll see you next time.